Have you had a goal that you've had difficulty achieving? I know I have. All right. So this talk is talking about how Agile's not just used for software. It can also be used to achieve your goals. And we'll discuss both software development concepts, a little bit of psychology and self-improvement, and then actually how to apply that and build your own goal and break it down. So first of all, my name is Jenn. I'm an Assistant Director of Development at Infotech. Can everybody hear me in the back? Awesome. So our company builds road construction project management software used by departments of transportation across the United States. My team is mostly a .NET C# shop. We're located in Gainesville, Florida, and currently hiring if you're interested. I'm also a co-founder of We Advance Tech Together, WAT, which is an initiative to support women in technology in our community. This is my Twitter handle, engineer_edge. If you want to follow me, tweet at me, anything. And so I've been, over time, learning about both Agile and how to achieve my goals. So some of my accomplishments over the years, I started out as an entry-level developer, became a lead developer. Now I'm an assistant director and manager. So I've had to gain technical knowledge over time, improve my communication and kind of team building skills, leadership, public speaking now. Also in my personal life, I have worked on raising a family, weight loss, cleaning up my house. These are all kind of big initiatives over time. For the purposes of this talk, we're going to focus on these two as examples, gaining technical knowledge through an Amazon Web Services certification and weight loss, because these are two examples that have different approaches, and I think that they're things you can apply the same concepts to different types of goals. So high-level overview, we're going to go a little bit of background on both Agile, psychology, self-improvement, and then we're going to talk about self-improvement, minimum viable products, and feedback, and then how to automate things through habits and designing your environment. We're going to be switching back and forth a little bit between the software development concepts into psychology and self-improvement, and then actually how to apply it. And I'll ask for some of your examples of goals that you might be thinking about as we go along as well. So first of all, Agile. What am I talking about when I'm talking about Agile? It can mean a lot of things. There's a lot of words that people throw around, and there's a lot of people that say they're doing Agile, and who knows what that means, right? So maybe I'm talking about Scrum. Some ideas there are empiricism, where you inspect and adapt. Maybe I'm talking about backlogs and sprints or daily stand-ups. We also do extreme programming, so maybe it's the idea of you're not going to need that, or frequent releases, having a sustainable pace, or pairing. Or the idea of lean from the Toyota manufacturing, where you're talking about eliminating waste and just generally iterating as fast as you can. But let's go back to the source of this Agile manifesto. We're uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others do it. It's a community practice, everybody improving each other along the way. We're going to value people and communication over those processes and tools. And where it says working software over comprehensive documentation, I consider that results. That software is the result that you are trying to get. And then the idea of responding to change over following a plan. No matter the best laid plan that you can make, something will come up that you're not expecting, and you're going to have to make a change in your plan. So, coming from an Agile background, trying to learn about how to improve myself, reading about psychology and self-improvement, there's this concept that kept coming up called a growth mindset. Who's familiar with this? All right, good. So when we learn to do new things, the brain is actually growing new neural pathways. And repeated effort and practice over time makes those connections stronger. Over time, you can learn new skills and even shift your personality. This was heavily researched by Carol Dweck, who literally wrote the book named Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. She's a Stanford professor and researcher. And she actually came up with both a fixed and growth mindset. So in a fixed mindset, you think all of your traits are fixed. I can't really improve them. I'm kind of stuck with what I was born with. You're going to look to prove that your skills are good enough instead of actually trying to improve. You're going to give up easily when you hit a setback. With a growth mindset, you're going to believe that you can develop new abilities and you're going to seek new challenges. And it's not just that you're one or the other. Everybody's got a little bit of both depending on what topic I'm talking about. So let's say you think that you can't change your personality from, say, introvert to extrovert or the other way around. Everything is kind of a pendulum, right? So you can shift these things over time. But when you're really trying to improve or learn a new skill set, it's important to take that growth mindset. You're going to be more willing to put in effort, seek challenges. You're going to learn better from feedback and look not just to prove that you're good enough, but to actually make steps towards improvement. In that perspective, you're going to see that failures are learning opportunities. They're great opportunities to learn what didn't work. You have to be okay that yesterday's done and you can make a better decision the next time. When I fail, it doesn't define me. I just haven't succeeded yet. Yet's a powerful concept. It anticipates success in the future. So if I said, I don't know much about Kubernetes yet, you would understand that that's something I'm working towards or looking to learn. And that shift in perspective helps me to keep a positive view of that goal. So first, let's take a look at what's an objective that you want to reach. Where do you feel like you're scoring not yet? What do you want to gain from your life experiences, and why is that important to you? So some types of objectives that you might reach towards are technical skills, interpersonal skills, career paths and preferences, or connections. So again, for my examples, I'm going to take a technical skill of Amazon Web Services certification and a personal goal of weight loss. So does anyone have an objective they'd like to share with us? Yeah.
I want to get better at machine learning.
At machine learning? Okay. Awesome.
These also be considered milestones.
Huh?
This also be considered milestones.
At first, we're just kind of taking a high level. What am I thinking about learning more about? Yeah. All right. So switching back to software, I believe that software is also built on that same idea of yet. We build prototypes, and when we test it, we look to not only prove that the system can work, but for improvements to make it better the next time. Our customers put in enhancement requests so that we're gradually building out a better and better system. And that idea of continuous improvement, not just of the product, but of the team, and that the team can get better over time. So as a leader on my team, I help prioritize our improvements so that we get the biggest return for the time that we spend, and help the team analyze how to break down the big pieces into manageable pieces that we can get to that improvement. So when we're breaking down work, there's an important concept of minimum viable product. Is everybody familiar with this term? Yeah, okay. So you're looking for a small amount of features for the first customer so you can get fast feedback. And so the way we're going to find this is we're going to break it down into a prioritized backlog. So let's say I'm building a new social network, like a new LinkedIn. And we need profiles, we need a login. We'll let people post messages, and then later on we'll worry about privacy, because who cares, right? So we're going to break down those top pieces. For our minimum viable product, we're just going to create and search profiles. So how would you build a personal backlog? So school starting, this might be my backlog. I've got school errands for the kids. I'm working on that certification, so I'm going to be reading white papers and doing tutorials. Really need to organize the house, eventually renovate the bathroom, and one day I really want to learn to play guitar. And this is why I still don't know how to play the guitar. So this is prioritized based on what's important to you. Your list will look very different, and it really takes a lot of self-reflection and figuring out where you want to go. Another example of a backlog that you may be familiar with is from college. Your backlog of classes that you need to take to graduate. You've got college requirements, you've got ones specific to your major, you've got electives. One thing to take away from this is that if you've got a very large goal, you're going to need time. Nobody expects to get a 4-year degree in this semester. It's not possible, there's dependencies, the pieces are too big. So if you're looking at something big, you have to break it down to something smaller to start. This book, Essentialism, by Greg McKeown, talks about a minimum viable progress. So when he was writing this book, he started with a tweet. Just sent an idea out into the Twitterverse and started getting feedback. And the ones that resonated, he built those into a blog post. And then eventually those posts were turned into the chapters of the book. So before he ever wrote the book, he was getting feedback on the subject matter that he was going to write about. When you're looking for those small pieces, it's also important to think about waste in terms of lean. So you're looking to spend time only on what adds value and optimizing the whole. Now, what I'm not saying here is that you can't watch television, for example. Optimizing the whole is also about a livable situation. You're not getting burnt out. You have some free time that you can relax. But when you are working towards something, what's the highest priority? Sometimes you work on all the low priority things because they're easy, and you never get to the ones that would have really given you a bigger bang for your buck. Also a recommendation, if you're starting something, if you just give yourself 5 or 10 minutes to get started, that's often enough that you keep going for a while to really get something done. By breaking things down into these smaller pieces, it gives you a much more sustainable pace that you're avoiding burnout. It gives you that subconscious inspiration time. So like we say, shower thoughts, where you weren't thinking about the problem, it was just kind of in the back of your mind, and suddenly the solution comes to you. And through that, you can also handle your unexpected roadblocks. So when you get those things that come up that are unexpected, you've got time to think about it and fix it. In those small pieces, what we're really talking about is a feedback loop. So every time you make a decision to do an action and get a result, you're getting feedback from that result and making a better decision the next time. This looks very similar to our software development lifecycle, right? So you go in through analysis, design, development, test, and release, and each of these times you're feeding back into it. I really like this diagram on extreme programming that shows the feedback loops in a software development lifecycle. So the outer loop is your release plan. So it might be months or it might be years, depending on your software product. And then inside that, you've got your sprints. And inside that, you've got functional testing. And then inside that, you've got a smaller loop that's your daily stand-ups. And so as you go down, you're getting smaller and smaller feedback cycles where you've got unit tests in the minutes, and you've got pair programming within seconds. You're getting feedback from the person that you're working with. So finding smaller and smaller ways to get feedback faster. When we start talking about building out a goal, they're often described as SMART goals. So you're looking for specific things that are measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. Part of being both measurable and timely is making them as small as you can so that you're also getting feedback. Talking about measurements, how can I measure? Maybe you do a daily review of what your tasks are and what your goals are. You have a task list of all the work that you're working on for your goal, all the pieces that you need to do. So for the certification, maybe that's all the white papers I need to read or just in a list. Test scores for the certification to be completed. Food journaling is really powerful if you're working towards a nutritional goal of any kind. For me, I was tracking calories, but you can track sugar, whatever you need to track. And by making it a habit that every time you eat something, you write it down, and you're learning from the statistics of what your journal shows you, how you can make changes. So for example, from food journaling, I learned I don't really enjoy chips as much as, say, an apple, and that saves me a lot of calories. Finding daily goals is another way to break that down. Have you heard of 100 days of code? Yeah, so the idea is that for 100 days, you write code for an hour and you journal it. There's also 30-day challenges, and it's the same idea that you do this one thing, you do it daily for 30 days. You can also do a retrospective just like you would with software. What's going right? What can I do better next time? And what am I going to do for the next couple weeks? I also highly recommend keeping a log of your accomplishments, whether that's a journal, if it's something professional, you put it on your resume. There's a psychological effect called the Zeigarnik effect, and it's actually that you are more likely to remember incomplete or interrupted tasks. So it's just like when songs get stuck in your head, sometimes listening to the end of the song can help it get out. It's also, waiters remember the order of the table until they drop off the check, and then after that, they don't remember anymore. So you're very likely to forget what you've completed. Keeping track of that is very important, so also celebrate it. So thinking about your goal, what does success look like to you? How can you prototype it? What smaller steps are you going to take, and how are you going to measure it? So for the examples I had, AWS certification, for me, success was getting the certification. The smaller steps were first actually researching what do I need to do to get a certification, how have other people accomplished this before me, and then once I had that task breakdown, it was reading white papers, watching a video course, and getting experience on the Amazon console. For weight loss, it was breaking that goal down to 5 to 10 pounds, and then weighing myself every day as my measurements. And food journaling was the big measurement of making sure that I was able to track to that lower number of calories that I was trying to get. All right, so moving back to software, we're going to look at automation. So in development, we have scripts. We have a continuous integration environment that runs all our tests. We do continuous deployment, so our production environment's always up to date. But how can we really automate our self-improvement? One way is through habits. There's 3 parts to a habit. There's a cue, an action, and a reward. The cue is the thing that reminds you to do the action. The action is the behavior that you're trying to reinforce. And then the reward is something positive that you get or get to do when you're done. So for example, I like to-do lists. So I have a task list that's on my phone home screen. Every time I use my phone, it's the first thing I see. And so that cues me to open it up, see what tasks I can complete, and then checking it off is the reward. When looking for something for weight loss, I actually read this book called Mindless Eating. And he had an interesting perspective. He described ways that you can arrange your food in the kitchen to help you achieve your goals. So for example, if you have chips out on your kitchen table, you're more likely to eat them. Seeing them is the cue that makes you eat it, and the chips themselves are the reward. Instead, you tuck those away out of sight. You put fruit on the counter, and when you arrange the pantry, you put healthy foods up front, junk food in the back, or in another cabinet altogether. And if you've looked at interaction design or user interface design, this seemed familiar to me. So in design, there's an idea of progressive disclosure. You hide away advanced options. It helps reduce your users' decision fatigue. So having to make lots of decisions makes you tired. Your users are going to be more efficient at picking the things that you believe are the correct choice. And it gives you a smart default. So this is a print dialog. Behind that advanced button and the properties button are additional options if you're an advanced user that needs those. But if you don't, you can just click that print button at the bottom, and it's got defaults that are reasonable for most people. So just like this dialog, by arranging the kitchen in a certain way, you're giving yourself those smart defaults. Another interaction is a call to action. So let's say you've got these sign up for our newsletter pop-ups that are on every website now, and you've got this huge button that's trying to get you to subscribe. So how can we do that in our physical environment? Every morning, I needed to read those white papers so that I would get my certification. I put them on my Kindle, and I put it right next to where I made coffee. So every morning, it was waiting on me. I didn't have to go look for it. It reminded me as soon as I saw it, I should really be reading. So that made it a smart default for me and an instant reminder. You can also arrange your digital environment. So in my Chrome browser, you can make the default page that opens something that you're working towards. So the training and certification page is the default page. Or you can use the bookmarks bar. I always have this folder called Read that's just things I need to read next. If you put them towards the front and tuck your other things away, you're more likely to see them and be reminded that's something I need to be working towards. There's also an idea called activation energy. So let's say I want to ride my bike, and this is my bike. It needs a little bit of work before I can get started. I can't just go hop on and take a ride. Anything that takes extra time to get started is going to be a demotivation to get started. So if you take time up front to handle those maintenance tasks, it will help you get there faster in the end. You can also use this to help you get away from things. So let's say I have a candy dish on my desk and I eat a lot of candies through the day and I don't want to anymore. Let's say I move that to the break room now. I have to get up and go find it when I want it. I'm not going to be as likely to do that anymore. So by building these smart defaults into your environment, it's helping that subconscious decision making where you're not really making the decision, you're just kind of going with what you see in front of you. So you're automating the right behaviors and guiding your behavior to those choices that you really want to make. I also recommend sharing with other people your goals. This helps with accountability, even if they wouldn't be someone that would hold you accountable for it. Even if I just send a tweet out that says, I'm working on public speaking, it still makes you think about, oh yeah, I told people I was going to work on that. And it makes you think about, that's something I do want to work towards. It also helps new opportunities find you. So I was talking about public speaking, and I actually got an offer, hey, we need somebody to come and give a talk at our event for just a couple minutes. And I said, sure, I'll do that. That's not an opportunity I would have had if she hadn't known that I was looking for those kinds of opportunities. You can also use this to crowdsource your learning. So when you are following other people that have similar goals, you will learn from their failures as well as your own, and it kind of helps with the learning process. They'll also have tips that they might share, whether that's something simple like a type of equipment that they use that's different. With the Amazon Web Services certification, there were certain video training programs that were highly recommended from several different people that were also had achieved those certifications. So, arranging your environment, those are called nudges. They're things that change your behavior without really restricting your options. When you're getting started on a new goal, it takes a little bit of extra motivation and effort, but taking time to reflect on what you need to do to achieve that and finding ways to make that the right choices easier than the wrong ones is definitely helpful. So, for some of those objectives that you have, can you share some of your ideas of what steps you might take or how you might arrange things?
So when getting a graduate degree, you need to understand your GMAT, right? You have to set time aside for that. So one of the ways, similar to what you do, I typically will put like a study guide or something. Or when finishing a graduate degree, for example, thesis dissertation, that kind of stuff. You have to actually put time into that, like every week, right? Like 30 hours of time. So you have to arrange your life in such a way that that is the thing that is in your way to achieve the other things that you really want to do, like scuba diving or whatever it is. So yeah, it's a good strategy.
Awesome.
Make it in the way.
Yeah.
Make it in the way to do the stuff you actually want to do.
Thanks. Anyone else? Yeah.
So I just started doing intensive front-end stuff a couple months ago, and a friend recommended me a book about ES6, and I was like, yeah, that's really good, thanks man, and loaned me the book. And I put it on my nightstand because I thought, yeah, I'll read this every night. But no, by the time I'm next to my nightstand, I'm plugging my iPhone in and going to sleep. So I brought the book to work, actually, and it sits on top of my box of granola bars and snacks. So every time I have to get a snack, I have to move the ES6 book, and I get several chapters so far.
Awesome. Anybody else? Okay. Do you feel like you have a good, let's say you have a goal, there's something that you're trying to work towards. Do you feel like you're struggling to find steps that are smaller? Does anybody feel like that?
I think one of the things is coming up with a goal.
Okay.
And being uncertain on what direction you want to go. I think that's one of the things that I'm experiencing. So
Okay.
I don't know if you can relate to that.
Yeah. So you're not sure where to start, even where you want to go.
Well, you have different options, and it's almost like, which direction should I go? Because once you choose it, you have to put in everything. You have to get behind it and actually move and do it. But
You do. I think there's ways to prototype it and get started on. Yes, narrow down by just starting on the one that you like the most. There's also an idea of prototype conversation. So let's say if you're looking at a whole career change, maybe you talk to someone that's already in that career and ask them about what a day in the life looks like. So maybe you would find someone, if it's a certain type of goal, a certain type of technology that you're learning, you would find someone that's either already done it and talk to them about it, or you just take a couple steps. And to me, goals are very flexible. You make an objective, but at the end of the day, if you find out that that's not what you want to do, it's very easy to toss it out and replace it. There's one, I actually was thinking about getting a Scrum Master certification at one point. And so I started researching it, and I found out that there's several different types of certifications you can get, and some of them have different ideas on very specific parts of Scrum. And then while researching it, I realized I already know a lot of these things just from working day to day in it, and I didn't think it was going to buy me anything. So I actually tossed that one out. But by researching into what that looks like, I had a better idea that it wasn't something I wanted to do, and that's okay too. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'd like to add to this, because when you had your 4 things up there, the last 2 were renovate the bathroom and learn guitar.
Yep.
Like, what did you have a methodology of? Like, how did you, like, why was renovate the bathroom above the guitar? Like, do you go through the process yourself, saying, I love this. This is expensive. Like, what is your research points of actually?
You haven't seen my bathroom for one thing. No. So that's the thing. It's really self-reflection. And for me, my priorities are always my family, because I have, kids and everything, then professional development. So moving forward in my career, whatever that means at the moment. And then the other hobbies and things definitely fall off. I do think that a lot of times we get scattered with our focus. We want to do everything, and you can't do everything. Keeping a couple of goals, maybe 2 maximum, maybe 3, keeps you from getting overwhelmed. But it's really self-reflection of what's important to me and which of these things, at the end of the day, do I want to be able to say that I've done or learned about or know more about. So yeah, it's all kind of just thinking on it, reflecting on it. Where do you want to go and what do you want to do?
Really, in the software world, you could point systems to certain things for
Yeah.
tiebreakers, expense. Have you done that on the personal side? Like, what if those tied? What if you loved your bathroom, or whatever?
Yeah.
What if those were tied in your goals? Like, how do you?
So there are definitely some that I do kind of that return on investment idea where I'm thinking, how much time is it going to take me to do this versus what I'm gaining? And how much money sometimes is it going to cost? Like the certification was going to be a couple grand, and yeah, work would pay for it, but it's also not really what I wanted at the end of the day. So when you're kind of weighing one versus the other, there is that some things you can start on the path towards, and just a little bit of improvement gets you a lot of gain. Maybe you've only spent a couple weeks learning about a topic and you've come a long way versus other ones may take you years. So it's definitely takes some weighing, and like you said, kind of score it out. Yeah.
Like years ago, I had an objective which was to do a triathlon. Question of how do you even start, right? And use the couch to 5K.
Yeah.
Because it does exactly the same thing. It breaks it down for you. There are lots of tips on the same thing. Place your shoes here, blah blah blah, all that other stuff. Yeah. Ended up doing 2 triathlons actually.
Awesome. So again, that couch to 5K is finding someone that's already done it and laid out the path for you as well, right? Awesome. Anyone else? Oh, I guess we're on questions.
One more. That's okay.
Yeah,
You mentioned
absolutely.
that you used something on your phone for a list or reminder.
Yeah.
Can you share what that?
Yeah, so I usually use Google Tasks, and there's an app that's like G Tasks. I also use Trello for different things, or some people use Asana. So just like you do for kind of lightweight project management, you can use the same things for any of your own goals as well.
Project management on Trello, there's certain templates that you do. Are there stuff, have you found anything on the personal side that lost template for Trello or anything like that?
I haven't. use it that much for that.
Build your own backlog. I mean, I have probably 5 backlogs in Trello for personal stuff that are my own products. I consider them that I prioritize based on whatever. So a lot of my stuff that you talk about the priorities, a lot of the things I prioritize, I look at it like what are my values in life, and then I prioritize the things I want to get done in life based on my values. Right? So that way you kind of get the work-life balance.
I
Being
think that
focus
focus
one way or
had
another.
like 15,000 tasks that you made, so you just
It's kind of free, right? Really nice. I find backing out of the green, like going green is good, putting it on the web is good, but writing it in my notebook that I carry with me everywhere I go all day, like putting it in there. Every day, write down the same 3 things at the top of the list. Whatever you're working on, write it down first thing in the morning and carry with you. And then it reminds you every time you're in a meeting, you open it up, right? Or you Franklin, whatever you use for your priority system, what's important, and what's urgent, what's important. That kind of system of management is always urgent and important, the things that are most important to you. So put those in quadrant 1, put them up at the top. I do that. I find that helps me. Trying to get on the internet to remember what I'm supposed to do or have to open my phone. That's what happens.
I feel like I always have a lot of things to do and I have a problem saying no, so I keep on finding more things.
Mhm.
And I always go with, oh, this one's faster, let me just do that one. But I never, I guess, evaluate what's really important, what's not. I never get to like bunch of my tasks.
Yeah.
So what suggestion do you have for someone like me?
Yeah, I mean, it's taking a minute and prioritizing it, really, and deciding which ones you can toss out or say no or say later. There's some things that I do want to do. I want to have a vegetable garden, but I'm not going to do that right now. When I'm retired, maybe. That would be a great time for it. I've pushed it off that far. So, yeah, prioritization of what's really important and what are you going to get the most out of it in the near term, because there's things that aren't going to be worth it. Yeah.
But sometimes like the most higher priority items are like not the ones that you really love or enjoy doing. So how do you balance them out? Like, I mean, I might feel more relaxed from vegetable garden or hobbies like, but I have these list of things that need to be done. And how important it is to always do the high priority things. Like, I mean, you give it a priority, but is it necessarily the right highest priority? Like, if you're prioritizing yourselves, then vegetable garden might come high priority on the list. But if it's like AWS certification or your kids, right, then you're prioritizing them over yourself too, right? So
Yes.
it's very relevant. So how do you recommend, creating like a mix or like or re-energizing yourself and making sure.
Okay. So there's a couple things there. So for things that you don't want to do but are high priority and getting started on those, it's one of those things where you just have to have the discipline to get started. Even if it's just 5 minutes one day and start, you'll find that you'll end up possibly an hour later still working on it. It's one of those things that getting started is often the hardest thing. And if you can find ways to make it easier to get started. So if it's, let's say you wanted to journal more, you would keep your journal somewhere that you're going to see it and it's going to remind you. So depending on what that high priority task is, it kind of depends how you would make it more visible. And then, so breaking those things down, I think also that's another thing we get stuck on is you start with a high priority task that's large scope, and it's kind of, I want to do this big thing, and finding a way to make it smaller or research ways to make it easier are another way to get more momentum built up. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question? Okay.
But it's okay to change priorities, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's up to us.
Yes, and so
What is important today is not important tomorrow.
exactly.
So it is okay to
Exactly.
deprioritize or reevaluate.
It's not once and done. It's an iterative process. You're going to look back at this every time. You're going to let's say in a couple weeks or a couple months, you look at it and you run it kind of like a sprint. You look back at your backlog and say, oh, that doesn't make sense anymore. And you throw things out, and maybe there's something new and shiny that you want to add to it. You can do that. So you've got to be more flexible about what your goal today is. Definitely not going to be your goal tomorrow. If you may have completed something, or maybe you didn't, but it doesn't fit you anymore. Absolutely.
So I have a goal of organizing, getting rid of things in my closet. So I wrote an article that you turn your anchors all the wrong way.
Yeah.
And if you wear something, you put it back. I just realized that you can use this methodology for that. Thank you for doing this talk about it. This is awesome.
Thanks. Anybody else have something they want to share? Or questions? All right. Thank you.